The morning light streamed through the Hartfield mansion's windows, casting a warm glow over cold silence. Vivian moved mechanically in the kitchen, ignoring the tightness in her chest. Marcus hadn't looked her in the eye in weeks. She reached for her favorite teacup, her grandmother's heirloom, when the pain struck like a bolt. Her body folded, the porcelain shattered, and all she could whisper was, "Marcus." He entered seconds later, dressed immaculately, his gaze lingering not on her but on the broken china. "I'll call an ambulance," he said flatly, then, under his breath, "Mother won't like this." The ride to the hospital was a blur. Vivian remembered the sirens, the cold, and Marcus sitting silently beside her, his phone buzzing in his hand. In the sterile environment of Hartfield Medical's premier hospital, Vivian froze as she heard the diagnosis. Dr. Thomas Montgomery's words seemed to reach her from a distance. "Mrs. Hartfield, your heart has sustained significant damage. Unfortunately, you'll need a heart transplant." Vivian's trembling hands gripped the edge of the hospital bed. As a former nurse, she understood the severity of her condition better than anyone, the waiting lists, the uncertainty, the slim chances. How long do I have?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Without a transplant? Months, perhaps. But we'll do everything we can to find a match quickly." In the corner of the room, Marcus spoke into his phone, muttering about company image implications. His words pierced Vivian's heart more painfully than her condition ever could. Only her father-in-law Richard had shown genuine concern, rushing to the hospital the moment he heard of what had happened, while her mother-in-law Eleanor prioritized a charity event over her well-being. "We'll need to register you on the transplant waiting list immediately," Dr. Montgomery said, and Vivian noticed Marcus's expression cloud momentarily, a flicker of something that looked almost like calculation. 20 years of marriage had taught her to read her husband's mind, to see beyond the perfect CEO facade to the man underneath, a man increasingly influenced by his mother's cold ambition. As Dr. Montgomery left, Richard squeezed Vivian's hand. "We'll get through this," he promised, his voice cracking with emotion. The stark contrast between her father-in-law's genuine affection and her husband's distant concern wasn't lost on Vivian. When Vivian tried to discuss her condition after returning home, Marcus cut her off mid-sentence, his attention on his smartphone. "Not now. Mother has scheduled an important company meeting." Vivian stood in their bedroom doorway, her hand pressed against her chest where the pain lingered. The distance between them seemed to stretch miles, though they were just feet apart. This wasn't the man she'd fallen in love with 20 years ago, the passionate young executive who had once looked at her as if she were his entire world. The next day, Vivian faced her mother-in-law Eleanor in the Hartfield mansion's luxurious dining room. At 72, Eleanor sat with perfect posture, her silver hair immaculately styled, dressed in high-end designer clothes. "Our family has no place for invalids. It only damages the corporate image," Eleanor said coldly, not bothering to look up at Vivian. "The Hartfield name stands for excellence and perfection. Illness is inconvenient." Though pained by these words, Vivian felt anger rising within her. 20 years of loyalty, of playing the perfect corporate wife, of sacrificing her nursing career, all dismissed in a single sentence. "I understand these things. I'm a physician's daughter myself," Eleanor continued, leveraging her background like a weapon. "A CEO's wife needs social standing above all. A medical professional would be ideal." Her eyes flickered meaningfully. Vivian stared at the family photos arranged in the living room, noticing how Eleanor always positioned herself between Richard and Marcus in every picture, her hand always on Marcus's shoulder, her body always slightly in front of Richard's. The visual hierarchy was unmistakable. Later that evening, seeking solace, Vivian found herself in Richard's study. Surrounded by antique medical instruments, Richard offered her words of comfort. At 74, he showed signs of poor health himself, secretly taking medication when he thought she wasn't looking. "How are you holding up?" he asked, the first person to actually ask about her feelings since the diagnosis. Vivian's eyes welled with tears. Your wife doesn't think I belong in this family anymore. Richard sighed heavily. Eleanor sees the world through a different lens. For her, everything is about status and appearance. He carefully removed a velvet box from the shelf, revealing an elegant necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. This jewel belonged to my mother. She intended to give it to Eleanor, but that day never came. She wanted to give it to us as a symbol of our hearts becoming one. The pendant caught the light, sending prismatic reflections dancing across the wall. I've decided to give the pendant to the one truly worthy of carrying this family's name, Richard continued gently. I'm giving it to you as a symbol of our connected hearts. Eleanor never understood its significance. To her, it's just another status symbol. His eyes softened with affection. The worthiness to carry our family name isn't determined by status, but by how one treats this jewel, with respect for what it represents: compassion, care, healing. He looked directly into Vivian's eyes. You deserve it, more than anyone else in this family. The shared passion for medicine had created a deep bond between them. Richard had always respected Vivian's nursing background, unlike Eleanor, who saw it as beneath the family's station. You remind me of my wife when she was younger, Richard said, surprising Vivian. Before Eleanor became so focused on appearances. On the wall hung design sketches, including one of the jewel Vivian had worn at her wedding. Next to it was the original blueprint for Hartfield Medical's first life-saving device, the one that had built their fortune. I started this company to save lives, Richard confided. Not to build an empire. Vivian felt a profound connection to his words, a reminder of why she had become a nurse: to help others, to make a difference. In Vivian's living room the following week, Dr. Olivia Brennan arrived for a home consultation under the pretext of offering a second opinion. Recommended by Eleanor, the 34-year-old cardiac surgeon exuded ambition in her designer clothes and perfect hair. Considering the company's reputation and future, the opinion of an excellent physician is crucial, Eleanor insisted, hovering nearby. Vivian noticed the stark contrast between the sparkle in Olivia's eyes when discussing medicine and the coldness in her gaze when regarding Vivian as a patient. Throughout the examination, Vivian caught meaningful glances exchanged between Eleanor and Olivia, a silent understanding that made Vivian's skin crawl. When Marcus entered the room, Olivia's demeanor changed, her voice softening, her posture becoming more inviting. After the examination, a fleeting uncertainty crossed Olivia's face, a glimpse of her inner desire to be recognized as a person of value. When Marcus's eyes met Olivia's, Vivian couldn't miss the clear interest they contained. It was the look he used to give her, years ago, before the miscarriages, before Eleanor's influence had fully taken hold. As weeks passed, Marcus became increasingly distant. He returned home late and avoided meaningful conversations. His smartphone frequently displayed notifications from Olivia, which he quickly dismissed whenever Vivian was nearby. One night, when Marcus thought Vivian was asleep, she watched through barely open eyes as he stood by the window, whispering into his phone, a smile on his face that she hadn't seen in years. The moonlight illuminated his expression, genuine, unguarded, and Vivian felt her heart breaking all over again. Family photographs throughout the house revealed their relationship had grown cold after past miscarriages. In older pictures, they stood close together, both smiling. In newer ones, the physical gap between them widened with each passing year, a visual timeline of their deteriorating marriage. The bedroom they once shared had effectively become separate, with Marcus routinely sleeping in another room, claiming, "I need to take business calls." The king-sized bed now seemed vast and empty, a nightly reminder of her isolation. As she lay awake at night, her hand resting over her damaged heart, Vivian wondered if it was just her physical heart that was failing, or if her entire life was collapsing around her. 3 weeks later, Vivian sat across from Marcus at an exclusive restaurant's VIP table. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead while waiters moved silently around them. She'd suggested this meeting to discuss financing her heart transplant surgery. What she hadn't expected was Eleanor sitting beside Marcus, looking more like she was attending a board meeting than a family discussion. Vivian leaned forward. The insurance will only cover part of the transplant costs. We need to discuss. I want a divorce, Marcus interrupted, his voice flat and businesslike. The words hung in the air as Vivian's world tilted sideways. She stared at her husband of 20 years, searching for any sign of the man she had married. This isn't the right time for such a discussion, Vivian managed, conscious of nearby diners who had paused their conversations. On the contrary, Eleanor interjected coldly. Timing is everything in business and life. I fully support Marcus's decision. Vivian's chest tightened, the familiar pain returning. She pressed her hand against her heart, willing it to keep beating steadily. Your illness is becoming a liability to the company image, Marcus stated, as if discussing a failed product line rather than their marriage. Eleanor nodded. A CEO's marriage reflects on the company. A partnership with someone in the medical field, a doctor, perhaps, would significantly boost our corporate image. Vivian felt the blood drain from her face as the pieces clicked into place. Olivia, she whispered. Eleanor's thin smile confirmed her suspicion. You've served your purpose, Vivian. But now it's time for someone who can truly benefit the Hartfield legacy. Under the table, Vivian's hand trembled as she fought to control her breathing. 20 years of marriage, dismissed like an underperforming investment. I've already contacted my attorney, Marcus added, checking his watch. You'll receive the paperwork tomorrow. That evening, alone in the mansion, Vivian stood outside Marcus's study door. For 20 years, she had respected his privacy. But now, with trembling resolve, she entered the room and sat at his desk. The computer prompted for a password. Vivian's fingers hovered over the keyboard as a painful memory surfaced. She typed to Emily, the name they had chosen for their daughter after their second miscarriage. The screen unlocked instantly. How cruel, she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. That he would use their unborn child's name while planning to abandon her seemed a particularly vicious betrayal. The emails appeared one after another, messages between Marcus and Olivia spanning months. Professional evaluations of Vivian's condition, clinical and cold, shared as if discussing a terminal business venture rather than a human life. One email from Olivia to Eleanor caught her eye. Once she's gone, everything will be perfect. The company will have the medical director it needs, and Marcus will have a wife worthy of his position. Attached was a photo that made Vivian gasp. Olivia wearing a heart-shaped pendant at a recent medical charity gala, the heirloom that symbolized the heart of the Hartfield family. Her hands shaking, Vivian opened Marcus's digital calendar. There it was, an appointment with a divorce attorney scheduled 3 weeks ago, well before her diagnosis had worsened. They had been planning this all along. The following day, Vivian visited Richard in the hospital. His condition had deteriorated rapidly, his once robust frame now frail against the white sheets. Still, his eyes lit up when she entered. I heard about what happened, he said softly. Marcus always did inherit his mother's ruthless pragmatism rather than my sense of humanity. Vivian took his weathered hand in hers. They've been planning this for months, Richard. Before I even got sick. Richard nodded slowly. I suspected as much. His expression hardened. But I've made my own plans. He motioned her closer. My study at home, the safe behind the medical history shelf? The password is your birthday. Inside, you'll find recordings of their conversations. I've been documenting Eleanor's manipulations for years. Vivian stared at him in shock. You've been recording them? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. The benefit of being underestimated. They think I'm just a sentimental old fool. He gripped her hand with surprising strength. There's also a trust agreement. The company's most valuable patents, the medical equipment designs we worked on together, I've arranged for control to transfer to you under certain conditions. Why would you do this for me? Vivian asked, tears welling. Years ago, a nurse much like you saved my life. Her compassion reminded me of what medicine should truly be about. His eyes filled with emotion. The recording devices are disguised as medical prototypes. Eleanor and Marcus never suspected. Richard's voice grew weaker. This company was meant to save lives, not accumulate wealth and status. The patents, the designs, they're not just numbers on a ledger. They're tools to help people. But they're your family, Vivian whispered. And in the ways that truly matter, so are you, Richard replied. Sometimes true family isn't about blood, it's about who shares your values. A week later, Vivian sat in a divorce attorney's office, staring at the document before her. The terms were as cold as Marcus's demeanor had become, a settlement designed to remove her quickly from the Hartfield legacy. You have grounds to contest this, the attorney advised. Given your medical condition and the length of your marriage, you're entitled to significantly more support. Vivian looked up from the papers, her decision already made. I'm not going to fight them. Mrs. Hartfield, I strongly recommend. I need to focus on my health right now, Vivian interrupted gently. Fighting a legal battle would take energy I simply don't have. What she didn't say was that she was playing a longer game. Richard's revelation had given her something more valuable than any divorce settlement, knowledge and time. As she signed the papers, a complex mixture of emotions crossed her face, grief for the marriage that had died long before this moment, pain at the betrayal, but also a quiet determination. This signature wasn't surrender, it was strategic patience. On her way out, a newspaper on the attorney's desk caught her eye. There was a photo of Marcus and Olivia at a recent company event, standing closer than mere colleagues should. The caption read, Hartfield Medical CEO Marcus Hartfield with renowned cardiac specialist Dr. Olivia Brennan at the annual Innovation Gala. As she left the office, her hand moved to her chest, feeling her damaged heart's uneven rhythm. For the first time since her diagnosis, the pain there felt like more than just her medical condition, it was the physical manifestation of a marriage destroyed by ambition and cold calculation. Yet beneath the pain, something else was taking root, a quiet resolve. Richard's trust in her had given her purpose beyond mere survival. She would recover, she would wait, and when the moment was right, she would reclaim what truly mattered, not out of vengeance, but out of respect for Richard's vision of what Hartfield Medical should be. Vivian's phone rang late at night. Richard's condition suddenly worsened. When she arrived at the hospital, monitors beeped steadily but his breathing was labored, his complexion ashen. I called you first, he whispered, not Eleanor, not Marcus. Vivian took his hand, tears welling in her eyes. The room was quiet except for the rhythmic beeping and Richard's shallow breathing. They don't know I changed my will, he said. Last month, after your diagnosis. On the bedside table sat an old photograph, a young Richard with his wife and small son Marcus, from a time before ambition and status had corrupted their family. You were like the daughter I always wanted, Richard continued, each word requiring effort. Someone who understood that medicine isn't about prestige or profit. His weathered hand reached for a folder, revealing blueprints for a heart monitoring device, one that Vivian had helped conceptualize years ago when she'd suggested improvements based on her nursing experience. This design, he said, touching the paper with reverence, your insights made it work. The hospital reported a 30% improvement in early detection. His eyes, though clouded with pain, shone with pride. You saved the company, Vivian. Not Eleanor's business tactics or Marcus's PR campaigns. Vivian stared at the blueprints in disbelief. She'd never expected her suggestions to become the foundation for one of Hartfield Medical's most successful devices. His breathing became more labored. The monitor's beeping accelerated. Promise me, he whispered, clutching her hand with surprising strength, you'll keep the company true to its purpose, saving lives, not building empires. I promise, Vivian said, tears falling freely. Richard's grip relaxed. You're the true Hartfield, he murmured. Then his hand went limp, the monitor flatlined, and Richard Hartfield was gone. That night, his family trusted the on-call doctor's report that his condition was stable, and no one came to his side. The only person he had truly trusted was Vivian. After the medical staff left, Vivian noticed an envelope tucked beneath the blueprints, marked with her name in Richard's handwriting. Inside were a letter and legal documents. Vivian, if you're reading this, I've left this world believing the company will find its heart again through you. The documents detailed a share trust agreement and patent ownership transfer. Richard had arranged for his controlling interest in Hartfield Medical to pass to Vivian upon two conditions: Marcus finalizing their divorce, and Eleanor attempting to take control of the company. The true purpose of Hartfield Medical was never profit, but to save lives, Richard had written. I've watched Eleanor twist this vision into something unrecognizable. There were plans for a next-generation medical education program funded by the company's most profitable patents, and a clause regarding the heart pendant stating it should remain with the true keeper of the Hartfield heart. At the bottom was a note: the voice recorder in my office has enough evidence to prove Eleanor's unethical practices. Use it wisely. Vivian carefully folded the papers, a mix of emotions washing over her: grief at losing her greatest ally, amazement at Richard's foresight, and the first stirrings of resolve. 3 days later, Vivian stood at the edge of the funeral, observing Eleanor playing the grieving widow masterfully. Dressed in designer black, she accepted condolences with practiced grace, dabbing at dry eyes when cameras pointed her way. The moment they turned elsewhere, her expression hardened. Olivia stood nearby in an equally expensive black dress, her hand on Marcus's arm. Around her neck glinted the heirloom pendant. When Olivia delivered a eulogy as Richard's medical colleague, Vivian felt a surge of indignation. The young doctor spoke of Richard's visionary business acumen and impressive empire building, completely missing who Richard truly was. Throughout the service, Vivian remained isolated. Former friends avoided eye contact, already aligning with the perceived new power structure. Before they closed the casket, Vivian approached and placed a small object inside, the prototype of the heart monitor they had designed together, engraved with words only they would understand, for the heart of medicine. 1 week after the funeral, Vivian was admitted for her heart transplant. Dr. Thomas Montgomery visited her pre-op room. As Richard's friend, I promise you'll get the best care possible, he assured her. He made me promise to look after you. The surgery began smoothly, but complications arose. Vivian's heart stopped for nearly 2 minutes before the team could restart it. The trauma sent her into a deep coma. For 23 days, Vivian lay unresponsive, machines breathing for her. The new heart beat steadily, but her mind remained unreachable. Nurse Julia Taylor watched over her with special care. She had recognized Vivian's name, the former nurse who had married into the Hartfield family, and felt a kinship with her. Dr. Montgomery, there's something strange about the visitor restrictions, Julia said one evening. Mrs. Hartfield's husband hasn't visited once, but her mother-in-law came with legal papers restricting information access. Dr. Montgomery frowned. Eleanor presented documents claiming to be Vivian's legal guardian due to the divorce. She's instructed us to limit information about Vivian's condition. Is that even legal? Julia asked. It's complicated. Eleanor has significant influence with the hospital board, he replied. But between us, I don't trust those documents. Eleanor deliberately misinterpreted my statement about Vivian's brain waves to claim she's brain dead. She's not, though. I've seen signs of response. Keep monitoring her closely, Dr. Montgomery said quietly. And keep detailed records. I have a feeling Vivian will need allies when she wakes up. In Eleanor's private sitting room, portraits of past Hartfield patriarchs gazed down from the walls. Eleanor stood before an antique bureau, pulling on white silk gloves before opening a hidden safe. Marcus and Olivia watched as Eleanor removed a velvet box containing the family heirloom, the heart-shaped pendant. This rightfully belongs to the Hartfield family. It was merely on loan to Vivian, Eleanor declared. Now it will go to someone truly worthy of our name. She turned to Marcus. Place it on Olivia's neck. Marcus hesitated. Mother, shouldn't we wait? Vivian is still. According to her doctors, Vivian will never recover consciousness, Eleanor interrupted. We've waited long enough. The company needs stability. Reluctantly, Marcus took the necklace and fastened it around Olivia's neck. As he did, Olivia's face reflected triumph, but for just a moment, uncertainty flashed in her eyes, a fleeting question of whether this victory was truly deserved. Now you truly belong in our family, Eleanor said with satisfaction. And once Vivian's personal effects are cleared out, which we must do soon, given the medical reports show no hope of recovery, we can announce your engagement officially. Outside the door, unseen by those inside, Julia stood frozen, having overheard everything. The nurse backed away silently, her heart pounding. She needed to tell Dr. Montgomery, and she needed to protect Vivian before it was too late. In the sterile silence of the ICU, Vivian's eyelids fluttered open. The steady beep of the heart monitor, her new heart, was the first sound she registered. You're awake, a gentle voice said. Julia adjusted Vivian's IV line, her face reflecting genuine relief. Vivian tried to speak, but her throat was raw from the breathing tube. Julia offered her water. How long? Vivian managed, her voice barely a whisper. 23 days, Julia replied. Your transplant was successful, but there were complications. Vivian's eyes searched for any sign of Marcus. Julia read her thoughts. Your husband hasn't been here, she said quietly. Not once. The words stung despite their predictability. Vivian closed her eyes, absorbing this final betrayal. But Dr. Montgomery and I have been fighting for you, Julia continued. Your mother-in-law told everyone you wouldn't recover. She's been restricting information about your condition, claiming to be your legal guardian. Dr. Montgomery entered, his face brightening at seeing Vivian conscious. Welcome back, he said. Eleanor Hartfield presented falsified guardianship documents, he explained. Legally, I had to comply with her restrictions, but I've had my doubts. They want me gone, Vivian said, each word an effort. Julia nodded grimly. We overheard things. Eleanor giving the family heirloom necklace to Dr. Brennan, saying you were as good as dead. Tears welled in Vivian's eyes, not from sadness but from quiet fury. Dr. Montgomery squeezed her hand. They may have abandoned you, he said, but we haven't. And Richard wouldn't have either. You have a new heart now, he continued softly. And perhaps a new life ahead. Vivian wiped away her tears, a steely resolve replacing her shock. Yes, she said, her voice stronger. A new heart. A new beginning. 3 days later, Vivian slipped into the Hartfield mansion during Marcus's board meeting. The house that had been her home for 20 years now felt foreign. She headed directly to the safe hidden behind Richard's bookshelf in his study. Her fingers trembled as she entered her birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside were a sealed will, a recording device disguised as a medical prototype, and a folder of documents. Vivian pressed play on the device. Eleanor's voice filled the room. If she doesn't wake up, the problem solves itself. Marcus can move on with Olivia. Then Marcus, the doctors say her brain activity is minimal. I'm confident she won't recover. Eleanor again, if she dies, everything falls into place perfectly. Olivia's voice, details aren't necessary. All that matters is that she's effectively gone. Vivian's hand covered her mouth, stifling a gasp. Even though she knew of their betrayal, hearing it stated so coldly still shocked her. In the patent documents, she discovered her name listed as co-inventor on several of Hartfield Medical's most successful devices, ideas she had suggested to Richard over the years. The trust agreement confirmed that upon Marcus's divorce and Eleanor's attempted company control, Richard's controlling shares would transfer to Vivian. The next day, Vivian found Olivia's social media post featuring a photo with Marcus. Please join us to celebrate our new beginning and Hartfield Medical's exciting next chapter. Richard would be so proud. The engagement party was scheduled exactly 1 month after Richard's memorial. In the photo, Olivia wore the heart pendant proudly. Through company emails Richard had given her access to, Vivian discovered the party would announce both their engagement and Olivia's appointment as Hartfield Medical's new medical director. With trembling hands but steadied resolve, Vivian prepared for the confrontation. This would not be about revenge, she reminded herself, but justice, for Richard's legacy and herself. The Hartfield mansion glittered with lights as guests arrived for the social event of the season. Inside, champagne flowed freely. At the center stood Marcus and Olivia, she in an elegant gown, the heart pendant prominent against her skin. Eleanor moved among the guests, every inch the proud matriarch. No trace of mourning remained, though Richard had passed on only less than 2 months ago. On a small stage, Marcus tapped his glass for attention. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This is a celebration of new beginnings, he said. With Olivia by my side, Hartfield Medical will reach new heights. He raised his glass. To the future of healthcare, and to the woman who will help lead us there. The ballroom doors swung open. Standing in the doorway was Vivian Hartfield. The room fell silent. Olivia's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Please, don't stop on my account, Vivian said, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. I wouldn't miss this celebration for anything. She walked toward the stage, the crowd parting before her. Eleanor's face was drained of color. Marcus stood frozen. I'm sure you're all surprised to see me, Vivian continued calmly. Especially since my husband and mother-in-law have been telling everyone I was essentially brain dead. She removed the recording device from her purse. Perhaps you'd all like to hear what the Hartfield family really thinks about loyalty and medical ethics. With a press of a button, the voices filled the ballroom. If she dies, everything falls into place perfectly. Medically, I'm confident she won't recover. Details aren't necessary. All that matters is that she's effectively gone. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Board members exchanged alarmed glances. Olivia's colleagues stepped away from her in visible distaste. And now, Vivian said steadily, I'd like to share something else. She nodded toward Richard's attorney who had appeared at the entrance. The attorney stepped forward. Richard Hartfield's will contain specific provisions regarding control of Hartfield Medical, all of which have now occurred. He turned to face Marcus and Eleanor. As of this moment, controlling interests are transferred to Vivian Hartfield, as does ownership of this house and all patents developed under Richard's supervision. Eleanor's face contorted with rage. This is absurd. The documents are legally binding and court-verified, the attorney said firmly. Vivian approached Olivia. That pendant belonged to my grandmother. Richard entrusted it to me because he believed I understood what Hartfield Medical should truly represent, saving lives, not accumulating wealth. She extended her hand. I believe it belongs to me. With trembling fingers, Olivia removed the necklace and placed it in Vivian's palm. Addressing the crowd once more, Vivian spoke with quiet authority. Hartfield Medical will return to Richard's vision, ethical innovation focused on patient care, not profit margins. Those who share this vision are welcome in its future. As she walked toward the exit, the silence gave way to murmurs, then scattered applause. Board members and physicians began moving toward Vivian, offering support. Behind her, Eleanor's voice rose in a furious shriek. Marcus stood motionless, his carefully constructed world collapsing. At the doorway, Vivian turned back. Richard always said the true heart of Hartfield wasn't in its profits, but in its purpose. I intend to honor that vision. As she stepped into the night air, Vivian felt the weight of the pendant in her hand, and the steady beat of her new heart in her chest. Both symbols of a rebirth she never could have imagined. 2 weeks after the dramatic confrontation, Vivian sat in a conference room with the Hartfield Medical Board members. The board has unanimously voted to remove both Marcus and Eleanor Hartfield from their positions, announced the chairman. Mrs. Hartfield. Vivian, we acknowledge that Richard's trust in you was well placed. Vivian felt a mixture of vindication and responsibility washing over her. This wasn't about personal triumph, it was about honoring a legacy. I'm not interested in revenge, she said quietly as she signed the documents. My only goal is to continue Richard's vision, a company that values ethics and innovation equally. The chairman nodded. The recordings revealed more than just personal betrayal. Eleanor's cost-cutting measures and focus on cosmetic devices over life-saving equipment went against everything Richard built. As the meeting concluded, Vivian gazed out at the Hartfield Medical Headquarters. She could already see possibilities for change, redirecting research toward essential medical equipment, establishing ethics committees, renewing the commitment to patient-centered care. 3 months later, Vivian stood in the doorway of a small, somewhat dilapidated community clinic in the city's underserved East Side. Using a portion of her inheritance, she had purchased the struggling facility. I never expected to find myself back in Scrubs, she said, smiling at Julia, who had left her hospital position to join Vivian's endeavor. It suits you better than designer dresses ever did, Julia replied, arranging supplies. Vivian ran her hand along the worn reception counter. Did you know Richard volunteered here decades ago? Before Hartfield Medical became successful. This is where he treated his first patients. That can't be coincidence, Julia said softly. The first weeks were challenging. Few patients came, and those who did viewed the new management with suspicion. Vivian worked long hours, sometimes seeing only 2 or 3 patients a day, but she persisted. Her nursing skills returned quickly, and she rediscovered the joy of direct patient care, something she had almost forgotten during her years as a CEO's wife. Your experience can't be learned from textbooks, Julia observed one evening. The way you connected with Mrs. Ramirez today, you knew exactly what she needed to hear. Vivian smiled, feeling a contentment that had eluded her for years. This feels right, she said simply. This feels like who I was always meant to be. 6 months into running the clinic, Vivian established a special program for children with heart conditions. The small ward, painted in cheerful colors, became a haven for young patients who needed regular monitoring but couldn't afford private care. One afternoon, a 7-year-old girl named Emma sat on the examination table as Vivian checked her heartbeat. When I grow up, Emma announced, I want to be a doctor like you. Vivian smiled. I'm actually a nurse, not a doctor. Emma tilted her head. Can nurses help fix hearts too? Absolutely, Vivian replied, warmth spreading through her chest. Nurses save lives every day. We're with patients every step of their journey. Sometimes, that's even more important than performing surgery. The child nodded seriously. Then I'll be a nurse. Later that week, Emma presented Vivian with a crayon drawing, a surprisingly accurate anatomical rendering of a heart, complete with chambers and valves. Vivian gasped softly, the drawing resembled Richard's original sketches for his first cardiac monitoring device. Where did you learn to draw a heart like this? She asked. From the picture on your wall, Emma pointed to a framed blueprint Vivian had hung in the waiting room, one of Richard's earliest designs. Looking at the child's drawing, Vivian felt a profound connection across generations, Richard's vision, her implementation, and now this child's potential future. A local newspaper ran a feature on the clinic's success. Within days, Vivian received an invitation to speak at the medical school about ethics in patient care. Standing at the podium, she faced a room full of eager medical students. Medical technology is only as valuable as the compassion behind it, she told them. The most sophisticated equipment means nothing if we forget that each patient is a person first, a case file second. After the lecture, a young woman approached her. Your talk changed how I think about my future career. I've been focused on prestige, but you reminded me why I wanted to become a doctor, to help people. The Dean of Medicine shook Vivian's hand. Your perspective is precisely what our students need. Would you consider becoming part of our regular ethics curriculum? As Vivian left the medical center, she turned a corner and came face to face with Marcus. He looked different, thinner, less polished, wearing a simple button-down shirt instead of his customary tailored suits. Vivian, he said, surprised. I read about your clinic in the paper. She studied him, feeling oddly calm. The anger and betrayal had faded, replaced by something like pity. Hello, Marcus. What brings you here? I've been volunteering in the hospital's administrative department, learning the operational side of healthcare from the ground up. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, the former CEO doing entry-level work. I lost everything, he admitted quietly. The company, the house, my reputation. But the greatest loss was you, Vivian. I see that now. I was weak, he finally said. I let mother's ambition become my own. I forgot what mattered. Vivian felt no triumph at his fall, only a sad recognition of wasted potential. We all make choices, Marcus. I hope you find a better path forward. Could we ever, he began, but stopped himself when he saw her expression. No, she said gently but firmly. That chapter is closed. But I believe everyone deserves a second chance to rewrite their story. Find your own purpose, Marcus, not your mother's. 1 year after Richard's death, Vivian stood before the newly renovated Richard Hartfield Center for Medical Education and Community Care. What had begun as a small clinic had expanded into a comprehensive center offering both patient services and training programs. Before the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Vivian touched the heart pendant around her neck, the true Hartfield family legacy, Richard's trust, her own future. We carry 2 hearts with us today, she told the gathered crowd. The hearts in our chests, and the hearts that guide our actions. My new heart gives me life, while Richard's vision gives that life purpose. On the center's sign, Richard's words were engraved, medicine is not technology, it is a mission to save lives. Inside, a special exhibition displayed the medical innovations Richard and Vivian had developed together. In her pocket, she carried Richard's letter declaring her my true successor. Not by blood, but by shared values. As Vivian cut the ribbon, she felt the strong, steady beat of her transplanted heart, a second chance she never expected. Around her, a new team of dedicated healthcare professionals stood ready to carry forward a vision of medicine that put people before profit. This was not the life she had planned, but it was the life she was meant to have, one with purpose, compassion, and a legacy that would continue to touch countless lives.